level with you, okay? Sometimes when you do this job, it's easy. And sometimes you look at the talent you're about to bring on stage and you get just slightly intimidated. Feeling slightly intimidated because we have got three absolute legends of Transformers joining us for our next panel! Yay! To talk about the art of voice acting and to talk about the thing that they do pretty much better than anybody. So, I'm going to introduce them one by one. Starting with the voice of RC herself, Sue Blue! Well over here. How are we all?
So good.
Great. Swell.
So glad to be here.
I'm going to go with swell.
Swell, yes. Is this the official beverage of TF Nation?
Rise of the Beast.
It is.
Yeah.
Rise of the Beast.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Will it make me feel any differently if I'm...
It might.
I mean, hopefully it is just water. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I've been told.
It's like, it's themed, but I don't even know what's in it. It's still spring water.
I may turn pink.
Right. So, all the time, whenever we get our guests up on stage, we always get questions from the audience about how you got into voice acting, how you got started. And everybody has a different story. And what I thought would be wonderful would be to get three professionals on stage to talk about their experiences from the very start of the process. Now, you don't really know what I'm about to do, so I'm about to unleash I'm about to ask you kindly to play along. What I want to talk about and what I want to explore in this panel is auditions. Because without auditions and without the start of the process, there is no show. You've got to find the right actor, and as an actor, you've got to find the character. And sometimes that's really hard. Now, Sue, I'd like to start with you, please, because in addition to your work as a voice actress, you have also been behind the mic.
Correct.
So, before the actors are even called in, what sort of things go through a director's mind, whether that be a casting director or a show director?
Well, the first thing is I'll meet with the producers and all of the writers and the artists, and we'll have a big meeting as to what they think the character should sound like. And I'll see photos of the characters, and some of them have all different ideas. And so before the auditions are even started, I have a really good idea of bringing them a plethora of different characters. Because I'll see the character as, I'll hear the character in my head as kind of one thing, but when I'm auditioning actors, I'll bring in as many different types of characterizations as I can, pick the best 10 from 50, and have the producers hear those. And then they'll make their judgment, and sometimes they won't like any of them. I'll go back, I'll get another 10. And maybe from that, then they'll call back 3 people for the role. I'll bring those 3 people back in, re-audition, and then David will get the job.
David, David, Jeremy, anything you'd like to add to?
Yeah, totally. So auditioning, especially these days, is kind of interesting because you're not really in front of a casting director anymore. It used to be sort of a team process where you would come in with some ideas, you would sort of deliver them to the casting director, the two of you would shape it together, and both of you would kind of put out something that, you know, maybe the producers would be into. Now, almost all auditioning, I audition in my closet in my New York apartment. It's very snug. My wife hates it, but I call it my happy place. It's like a padded room, which I knew one way or another I would end up in. So when you're by yourself now, it's almost completely up to you to mine your own creativity and your own authenticity. So you look at the specs, and sometimes it's very specific, sometimes it's very generalized, and you find where that lives in you. You find out how you interpret that, and that's how you bring a particular authenticity and personality to it that is unlike anyone else's, hopefully. That is the hope.
You know, it's interesting because, believe me, I'm not going to monopolize the conversation.
Talk the whole hour.
Tanya Themin helped me cast a show recently called Lost in Oz, and I really wanted this guy to audition for it, but he was coming back from a convention, and he was at LA Airport. And I said, do you have your phone? He said, yeah, well, of course, I'm on my phone. I said, go into the bathroom and give me the audition. So he auditioned on his phone and sent it to me, and then I sent it to the producers, and he got the job.
I have a whole other story for you on this panel and the next panel about how Rise of the Beasts happened. Rise of the Beasts, the idea, it's sort of getting to this point now with a lot of these big movies, they would prefer all celebrities. But just in case, they bring in the Rise of the Beasts, they only brought in 2 of us that weren't celebrities. And I spent a year auditioning for those parts. An entire year where I played many parts in the movie until they hadn't found celebrities who just decided that they would give it to me. It was an interesting process.
So you've touched on a number of different topics there and points which I think we could dissect, but I suppose that is the freedom that technology has afforded us now, is the fact that the ability to, whether you're recording from your closet, whether you're recording from a bathroom, or whether you recorded it a year ago and you're just waiting for them to make the right choice.
Oh no, let me just clarify a bit. It was every couple of weeks for an entire year.
Wow.
Wow.
On the studio lot.
Patience is a virtue, isn't it?
You're a celebrity to me, if it helps.
Here's how I look at it. I'm not a celebrity, but my characters are celebrities.
No, you're a celebrity.
Yes.
It's not for me to decide.
Well, it's interesting because how I started 100 years ago, I know I don't look it, but it was 40 years ago. And my agent called me up, and I didn't even know what a voiceover was. And he called me on the phone and he said, if you were the Pillsbury Dough girl, you know, the doughboy, he said, how would you sound? Give me this line, hi, I'm Poppy the Pillsbury Dough girl. And I went, hi, I'm Poppy the Pillsbury Dough girl. Well, he had me go over to Leo Burnett, and they had been auditioning for months all over the place, in LA, New York, Minnesota. You know, they were just tired of auditioning, and I came in just at the right time.
And they didn't know what they wanted until you showed them.
I guess, you know. That's what started.
That's an interesting point there, Sue, about how you started. David, Jeremy, what about your first auditions?
Do you want to field this one?
Sure. I was doing theater in Vancouver, Canada, and an agent saw one of my plays and said, "Come do villains." I'd never, so I keep hitting him, so sorry.
It's okay, I'm man-spreading over
Here
here.
we go. It's not the subway. Subway. Yeah, and she just saw what she saw, and I never thought of doing voice acting, and she got me into it. Yeah. They kept encouraging me with a paycheck, so I kept doing it. No, I really enjoy, of course you learn to enjoy it, and then you really do love it after a while, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It's been 30 years.
That's great. So I was a musical theater major in college. I don't really do musical theater anymore. Please don't ask me to dance. It's not a pretty sight. And I used to do voices just for fun. I don't know, you guys probably don't remember the movie phone guy. Back in the day before the internets, you would call a phone number to find out what the movies were, and you'd call a movie phone, and Mr. Movie Phone would come on. So I would do all of my friends' outgoing voicemails. "Hello, and welcome to Zach's phone. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, press 1 now."
Most of you are too young to remember how famous he was.
He was huge.
That was a huge deal.
That joke used to kill. Diminishing returns. So I was always kind of interested in doing voice acting, and then after college, I took lessons with a private coach, and he helped me make a demo. And then a friend of mine from college actually was a voice actress in New York, and she offered to introduce me to her agent. Don't worry, this takes a nosedive very quickly. So I went, I played my demo, they were very excited, we had a great meeting. I was like, this is really easy. I don't know why people think this is hard. I just waltzed into New York and I have an agent. And then I called him once. I was feeling a little too confident. I was, 22 years old and hadn't learned anything yet. I think I called my agent Booby on the phone as a joke, and they never called me again. I was just like, I called back a week later. I was like, still the same phone number, just call me back. So I gave up on it for like a long time, better part of 10 years. I just was super burnt. I forgot about it, and then some years later I got back into an acting class, met someone else who did voiceovers. She offered, let's try this again, she offered to bring my demo to an agent. The agent liked me, sent me out on my first audition. Probably a week later, I booked my first job 2 weeks after that, and I quit my day job 6 months after that. So, I was everyone has a different path. That is a very fortunate, even if you factor in the 10 years where I just licked my wounds. Everyone has a very, very different path, especially these days. It is not nearly as linear, so.
So when we've talked about voice acting and finding a character, I think it was mentioned just a few minutes ago about you might not know what kind of audition you're getting. Sometimes it might be an image of a character, sometimes it might just be a piece of text, something like that. What sort of techniques do you employ, and what plans have you devised to help you try and cut to the center of the voice you're going to create? Before I spring some examples on you.
That's a really good question. A lot of people, I'll go to parties and I'll have people come up to me and go, "Hey, I can do voices." "Hi, I'm really good at it," and they're talking from here up. And when I approach a character, or I'll talk to actors about approaching a character, it's really from here down. If you build, remember Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come, that old movie. Well, if you build the character, the voice will come. So I've always tried to find the heart and the soul of that character and let the voice come out of that. and it usually pays off. You know, it's not voiceover work, it's acting.
A voice is not a character. It doesn't matter what you sound like, it doesn't matter what your voice sounds like. No one is interested in your voice, they're interested in your humanity. They're interested in your authenticity, what you bring to the table as an individual person. What I like to do, also, well, I'll tell, I had an audition, I was studying with Charlie Adler, as all roads lead through Charlie Adler. Of course, Transformer in his own right, absolute legend. The class was amazing. And he would let you bring auditions to the class, and he would like coach you through auditions, it was great. And I had an audition for something, I don't remember what it was, but it was for some sort of like robot-y, android-y thing, and I had a robot voice. And I was very proud of my robot voice. It was just sort of a generic, detached robot voice. And Charlie was like, it's a pretty good robot voice. I was like, thank you. He said, you better hope it's better than everyone else's robot voice. He was like, everyone's gonna go in there with this exact same robot voice. He was like, this is not creative, you're not bringing anything to this is super service. And I really took that to heart. So now I find any way to personalize it for me. So if this character reminds me of my Aunt Beth, like I will, like for no reason, like it doesn't have to make sense as long as it makes sense to you. So I take a piece of my Aunt Beth and I'm just like, all right, there's a little Aunt Bethness here. And then I was like, but you know what? He kind of scares me a little bit. Kind of like my 4th grade gym teacher. I'm gonna throw in a little Mr. Biddle here. And then, you know, and then I call it the cocktail. So eventually you have these sort of characteristics, and that creates the cocktail of like the essence of the character. But again, characteristics are not a character. It's acting. It's who am I, what do I want, where am I, it's really doing it. It's not sounding like you're doing it. It is believing it. I'll pass very quickly, sorry, but I always say acting, voice acting is like acting, but harder. Because you're not on set, you're not on stage, you can't delude yourself it's harder to delude yourself into believing you are this character under these circumstances when you're in a tiny padded room in your very hot New York apartment. So that is like Sue said, absolutely. It is acting. That's where the acting comes in. That's what really separates the people who thrive from the people who are like, I got a pretty good voice. I bet I could do this.
Well, for me, I have a lot of things that I do, but I have to do it very quickly because it's like a lot of process, but I've been doing this for 30 years, so it's also kind of all sped up, so I can do it, you know, in a short amount of time. But I studied with a very famous acting teacher many years ago named Sanford Meisner.
What?
Yeah, he was my teacher when I was young.
Dude, that is so awesome. I'm just gonna go out there.
Yes. And Meisner said, acting is living truthfully under given imaginary circumstances. Animation, video games, and the movies that I do, it's a heightened reality, so I do make some adjustments to the Meisner technique, but it's still real. You have to tell a story. I think of voice acting as an on-camera performance, but it's all in my mind. I have to see who I'm talking to. I have to know what just happened before I start talking, because a lot of times, if you're just beginning voice acting, it just sounds like you're reading. Because you don't have a reason for saying anything you're saying. You have to tell the story. Meisner used to say that acting was emotion, right? What does it say? The text was just the text was technical. It was emotion that you were worried about. It was. I'm trying to think. So the reason I'm getting confused is, was it riding on a bed of emotion? Yeah, the bed was emotion, and the text was just technical. The emotion was all that mattered. I take it a step further now. I look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs says, if you don't have air, you don't care about getting water. If you don't have water, you don't care about food. If you don't have food, you don't care about shelter. And then I think the highest point in that is love. If you don't love yourself, you can't love somebody else. So I look at the psychology of the character as where they are on that scale. and then I go from there with the relationships, and just knowing what story you're telling is the most basic thing. And I use that when I'm teaching. It's like, okay, do you understand the words you're saying? Do you know what they mean? Do you know who's in the scene with you? Are you seeing it in your mind? So all that stuff just gets mixed in a blender, and out comes Shockwave. Needs no emotion.
You should do a seminar on love. You know?
Seminar on love.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
I can fit it into the schedule. Anybody want to say that?
that all comes down to whether or not you love yourself.
yeah, it does. You know, it does, because you're bringing you to the audition. You know, you're bringing you to the character. Then you become that character. You know, I've always talked too about pre-life, about what you said, Jeremy. You know, what happened before you spoke the first word. I always believe that my intention is to fulfill the playwright's intention. And however I can do that, so it's different and yet honest than the other 49 people auditioning for that role. How can mine stand out and still be honest to the character and still fulfill the playwright's intention? The beautiful part about voiceover is we don't have to memorize. You know, I used to go out on camera auditions, and I used to memorize the text because I was really good once I was off book. I was horrible when I was on book. You know, I'm dyslexic. I used to say Little Wed Wooster went to the Little Wed Barn when I was a kid. I had a speech therapist up until the time I was 16, and I made a living at what people thought was impossible. And so I overcame a lot, you know, with all of my handicaps. And I'm getting off the tangent here. I want to get back to love. But,
And I always come back to love, right? And I do want to add to that, though. If you're having a bad day, I'll keep it G-rated. If you're having a bad day, and you're feeling bad about yourself or depressed or whatever, if you have to take that and find a way to have the character just experience some of that along with you. Because you can't, like, here's the thing too when you're an actor, your character doesn't know that you have to pay rent. Your character doesn't know what you have to face the next day in your life. They only know their life. But you're still there. And you can't get away from the fact that you're still there. So you have to let the two work together. That makes sense. Yet, he doesn't know you have to pay rent.
So, I have a few friends who are actors, and they've sent me some auditions that they've had. And I've written them. And I would like to get your take on them, if you don't mind.
Do they know you're doing this?
No?
Do they know you're recording this to go on the internet?
This is why I'm on this side of the stage.
Well, as long as they're not sitting here.
I'm certainly not going to ask you to come up with an audition right now, but I would be curious for you to have a look through them and tell me a little bit about what you might pick out, what might be key to you, what you might focus on and things like that. So don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to, you know, give us an audition right now.
I'm ready.
Except Jeremy, who is obviously super keen.
I'm ready.
So what I've done is I've taken three different audition pieces and rewritten them with a bit of a Transformers theme. So let's have a look at the first one here. So, just a block of text. No images, no nothing. Billy loves all earth music, especially good, hard, loud rock and roll. They can be found at the forefront of any situation in which they're involved, be it getting down or kicking butt and taking names, both of which they do well, and both of which have led them into conflict with authority at times. Billy marches to their own beat, whether it be pounding bass line or pounding bad guys' skulls. And they're not shy when it comes to sharing their feelings about either. And I've put a quote from the character. Yeah, I'm angry, but I was a lot angrier when I thought you abandoned me to die in this stinking pit. So if this, oh, don't cheer me, that was dreadful. So here's a question then for you. When you get an audition like this, what's the sort of thing that first goes through your head when you look at something like this?
I throw out that entire paragraph and just look at what it says. A little bit of a consideration of the paragraph, but not much.
There is such a thing as too much information. At least like at that point of the process, I think, because you're kind of confusing the issue a little bit. Now we're like critiquing the casting person, who I hope is not here. Otherwise, this is fantastic. Call me. I mean, like, to me, you know, it says that this character is rebellious, and like that's all you need to say. This character is rebellious, and then you think, okay, how do I find the truth in rebellious? Is there someone I know that I like as rebellious? Is there a time in my life where I felt that I was somewhat rebellious? And I start to sort of build out from there in any way that like I can connect to it as a person. But yeah, that's a good start.
Sue, I'm curious just to get your take as a director.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I don't mind all the text. You know, I look at he likes to kick butt, you know, whether it's pounding baseline or pounding bad guy skulls, and they're not, and he's not shy when it comes to sharing his feelings. That's the key line. He's not shy when it comes to sharing his feelings. You know, I would like to hear an actor have some vulnerability in this line. Yeah, I'm angry, because most guys are gonna go, yeah, I'm angry, but I was a lot angry when I thought you abandoned me to die in this stinking pit. That was all one level, you know? So I'm looking for more level in this small amount of audition. Yeah, I'm angry, but I was a lot angrier when I thought you abandoned me to die in this stinking pit. I think it's important to keep the anger, but I think this character has a lot of vulnerability because he cares about the guy that was going to abandon him to die in the pit.
I think something that we sort of touch on too. Oh, brilliant! That was perfect. That was great. So we talked a lot about like inner life and that kind of stuff, but there are, especially in animation, a lot of times you are going to be called to be things that you would not be in normal life. Like I'm not getting cast as like, you know, a rugged soldier anytime soon necessarily. You know, I'm like a skinny Jewy kid from Brooklyn. But well, I guess so is Cal. So like you're going to like transform yourself. You're gonna transform yourself. And those characteristics are help in like revealing the character too, as long as you realize that they are not the character like in total. But yeah, I mean, this guy has certain attributes to his voice which are also going to kind of help reveal. So I play Rack and Ruin in Transformers Cyberverse, and it just starts from somewhere. Like I probably watched Chris McFeely's YouTube video on him. They said he was a wrecker, so I picture sort of like a New York construction worker, and he was huge. He was a big character. So I have to physically make myself bigger. Whenever I do the voice, I have to put my arms like this. But I mean, like, so his voice is like that, just naturally. So I'm like, so sorry. You should have played that role. Thank you very much. But I mean, like, these are characteristics that you are going to add too. Like, what, you know, when you think of someone who is angry and likes to crack skulls, I think of someone who has a bigger voice and has a little texture to their voice, you know? These are the kind of things that you pepper in that are also going to create a three-dimensional textured being, and that's the most important thing. Like, when you decide on something about this character, great, keep going. Add more texture, add more complication, add more vulnerability. Find a way to approach this character that only you can do it. My friend Peter is a photographer, and when he started learning to do photography, the guy who was teaching him was like, all right, you see that statue? I want you to shoot that statue like no one on the planet has ever shot it. And you're like, oh, and you gotta think of it like, what angles? How close am I gonna get? What encapsulates me here? So yeah, keep going, keep complicating it, keep making it more interesting, and that's the way to, you know, having an interesting, fully living, breathing character in this work. And scene.
This reminds me of my audition for Depth Charge. My audition for Depth Charge, thank you, was 40 minutes long. And the 40 minutes was spent getting layers. Who is this guy? Now what's underneath that layer? What's underneath that layer? What's underneath that layer? And I kind of take all the stuff I talked about earlier, but you know what you have to do at the end of the day, at least what I have to do, is find one thing that's the essence of this. And the essence of this is, you abandoned me. To me. And the whole thing is about the fact that you did this to me. How does that make me feel? And then I go from there. Sue has one way of expressing it. I might have a slightly different take on it with the same feeling underneath. You bring your different takes, different personality, the director may have a whole other idea. You never know. And that's the hard thing now, because we're auditioning from home. And we don't have the director to give us any feedback. Hopefully we'll get a call back, and then we get some feedback. Yeah, oftentimes it's still at home. A lot of the stuff I'm trying out for, I don't know if I did it well, nobody would tell me.
Yeah, there's, the fool's errand now is trying to do it right. There's no right. There's no right. There's a million ways to skin this cat. There's no right way to do it. The only right way is whatever satisfies you. That's another thing Charlie Adler said. He said, the only currency we have anymore in this work is how we feel about it. So like, you can't get into the minds of casting, you can't get into the minds of anyone else. Like, you can't just try and do whatever you think that they want from you. You need to do the thing that satisfies you. And you're like, it's like a hum, like when you hit it, like you just gotta know. It's like when you hit a chord, you know, and it's just like, there's harmony and everything feels right with the world. But yeah, I mean, that's all we have now. We have no one else telling us we did a good job, and we're actors, we need that. So yeah, to like do the thing, you feel like you left it all out on the field. It's a sports metaphor, I did not see that one coming, but you get what I mean.
If I want to try something new, I sometimes take a chance and just send them something I didn't even ask for. And does anybody remember this character I played called Spooky Jar in the Sabrina series in the 90s? Not a Transformers thing, I wouldn't expect many to know it. But the specs said, this is crazy, the specs said they wanted an Indian accent, someone from India. And I can't do an Indian accent. And I had another idea, and I said, there'll be very few of you that get this reference either, but you can look it up on YouTube. There was a show called Bewitched many years ago. Yeah. This character speaks in rhymes, speaks in incantations, really. He's laying out spells, mostly. And I took Agnes Moorehead, who played the older witch on the show, and I performed as she did. And he jumped up and down and gave me the part on the spot.
That's great.
That's great.
That's great.
Wasn't disappointed at all.
Yeah, I mean,
also, wait, one last thing. They had gone through everybody in town, and they had no other choice because I was the last person they saw, and they were recording the next day. And I did something they wanted.
We, as women actors, we will, I call it stealing with love. You know, I will steal from men's performances, you know, all the famous actors. Now, I'm not going to sound like that guy, but I'm going to come up with a pretty interesting character.
I've never met an actor who isn't a people watcher through every aspect of their life. Whether you watch a movie and take from another performance, or whether you see somebody on a bus and their mannerism or their tick or their eccentricity. How important is that for you? Are you just constantly learning, constantly taking in?
You know, the one thing, you know, we're all talking about our processes and how we think about a character and how we work through and the layers and you know, that's important, and that's really important to developing a character. But you know, when push comes to shove, when you do it, you gotta forget all that stuff and keep it simple, really. Because what'll happen is you'll become so technical that you lose the heart of the character because you're layering it with so many different things. Do all that, but then forget it and just play.
Boleslavsky, I think said, had that like image of the bear, the person like running for their house and the bear chasing them. And he had like an actual image in his book. Another, you know, very important Russian acting teacher. And they said, when you are in this situation, so the bear is all of your preparation. That's all of your homework, all of your processes. But when it comes time to run, you don't think about the bear, you think about your house. You think about going home. So you do all that stuff, you internalize all that stuff, you have that stuff underneath of you. But yeah, when you are like in the middle of a scene, you're not thinking about, did he get along with his uncle? I'm not really sure.
And you know, if you apply that to this, by the idea of, you know, you did this to me, you hurt me, that can also lead to so much play, because you never know where that's going to go. If that was real life, one of the things I say to my students, I'll have them play back what they did, even if it's a crazy whack character, and I would say, would you talk like that to somebody? Oftentimes it's just a voice they're doing, and then I teach them to not just do a voice, they can discuss.
Yeah.
Is that the 6 lessons of Boleslavsky?
It is!
I read it and studied it years ago.
This is amazing. Meisner, Boleslavsky, this is great.
Uda Hagen.
What's that?
Uda Hagen.
Yes, of course I know Uda Hagen.
Yeah, I studied with Uda.
Wow.
Years ago in New York.
I studied with a guy named Matt on 45th Street.
You know, as an acting, somebody who did acting at university, the entire reason I do these panels is basically to just watch this and just be, so good. Yes, talk more about the greats. Going back to this, does anybody know who this is?
Yes.
Who is it?
Billy.
Billy? The clue is in the name. Anybody got any guesses? Blaster. Yeah, well, from Marvel Comics, not from the TV show. So if you were to just get this image, if this image had accompanied the text with you, would it have changed anything? Or, as you say, David, is the only thing that's important the dialogue?
No, I mean, the dialogue isn't important. The idea of the dialogue that inspires you emotionally is. And you'd be surprised how many different voices that character could have. Depends on what the director wants.
Absolutely.
What inspires you.
I think like anything you have to go on, anything that anyone gives you is a gift, and it's just like another piece of the puzzle. And you have to kind of be a detective and pore over everything you get. I love getting an image personally. Like I think that really, because that's not necessarily how I pictured this character to be. I pictured him being seemingly much more gruff and like sort of down and out. Like he seemed like, you know, someone with a chip on his shoulder. But this guy seems like he's happy to me. This guy's having a good time. This guy's having a good day.
It's interesting you should say that, because when this character was introduced, in the Generation 1 cartoon and the Marvel comics, completely different personalities. The one we took was the Marvel comic. This guy loves Earth, loves music, happy-go-lucky. So your take is 100% spot on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, that's a guy who, he has a playfulness to him, I think, or at least like an appreciation of things, and he's not just like, you know, he's not just like scarred and hates everything and everyone. So yeah, I mean, I think having an image is great, and there's so much that you can use to inspire you. And again, it doesn't have to be right. There's no right. As long as you believe it and you can commit to it, then like that is the correct answer. As long as you can deliver that authentically from the heart.
Now, once the audition process is done, and I'll end with this, my question is, how do you deliver on the director's vision? To work in tandem as a team to bring the performance to life. I'm very curious about that. Sue, would you like to say?
Oh, this is a tough one. You know, all the shows I've directed, I will usually have 20 people sitting behind me who want to direct it, you know? And my job is to get their job done, but also I have to be diplomatic with these guys in back of me, the writers, the artists, the producers, the executives from Universal, whatever. So I have to please them, and yet I have to be the conduit to the actors. And I will always stipulate before I direct that my job is to help them get done what they think needs getting done. However, they have to go through me. And before I even get the job, I will, on an interview, because a lot of times I've had to interview to direct, and I will say, I need to be the conduit to the actors. I need to be the only voice to the actors, because I have been in other sessions where, you know, I'll have my hand on the button. Now the actors can't hear unless I have my finger on the button. And if by accident I have my finger on the button where the actors can hear, and I hear a producer going, well, that stinks, have them do it again. That's horrible, you know? I mean, I think I'm a good director because I'm a good actor. And that has what put me into directing in the first place. The actor also, it's my job to keep the actor at peace, excited, confident, knowing he's doing a good job, because they may ask for 10 different takes. Well, my idea, I see it read this way. You know, I do everything in my power not to give a line reading. However, I was in London. The last time I was in London, I directed Derek Jacobi in My Secret Garden and Honor Blackman. And I was trying to explain something to Derek, and he said, just give it to me. How do you hear it? I did it, he said, perfect. And that's how he did it. He got it, you know? So some actors who don't like line readings, I will break down and give them one when it's necessary after I've tried everything else. And you know that.
Yeah, but you know why I don't like line readings? Because you're not doing it usually. If you're doing it, I'm fine with it. Most people can't act as well as you can. So the line reading, well, this is what happens when they're not Sue Blue. The line reading they give me is what's in their head, but it's not coming out of their mouth. So I become a line reader. They had me on a Star Wars project with a guy that was an art director. They didn't have a voice director. And he didn't know how to direct or act. So he was giving me all these line readings, and I was trying to do what he was sort of partially guess what he wanted and partially do what he did. But he was getting angrier and angrier with me. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to direct it myself. And then he was fine.
You know, I know many of you have heard of Wally Burr.
Yes.
God rest his soul.
Indeed.
And he was the one that brought me into audition for RC in the very beginning, years and years ago. And I did several shows with Wally at the helm. Worked with Charlie on tons of shows. We were both actors trying not to laugh at each other.
Trying not to laugh at Charlie is impossible,
yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, but Wally would say, no, Susie, do it just like this. Come on, let's get him. And I go, come on, let's get him. And he'd go, no, listen, come on, get him. You know, and by the end of the session, our throats would just be bleeding. And, but he was, you know, really a wonderful director, other than beating us into the ground occasionally with the line reading, you know. Sorry.
Can I say one thing about this woman before we end tonight? Sue Blue director, I'm getting very emotional when I do this, by the way. It's very hard.
I love you.
Well, I love you too. She directed me 25 years ago in Beast Wars. You are the queen of pre-life, because you know what Sue does is acts the scene with you. She's there with you with 100% of her energy. No other director on earth does that. And that's why I was good at Beast Wars.
Look at I'm welling up.
Because of you.
It's so great to see. So great to see like that sort of personal and professional relationship, you know, so many years later. That's great. Sorry, I'm just fanboying up here. Are we done? What's the...
No, I just wipe my
Oh, great.
We'll just compose ourselves. Then what I would like to do then is just end with this. One simple question. To any aspiring actor out there, not voice actor, actor, what is the one piece of advice that you heard from somebody that has stuck with you your entire professional career?
Don't let anyone squish your dreams. That's my line, but don't. A lot of people are going to tell you how stupid what you're doing is. If you want it, you got to do it, because you'll live with regret if you don't.
Yeah.
And I say, if I can make a living at it, anybody can.
It can be a very hard road. It can be tedious. It can be tough. There's a lot of rejection involved. So I always tell people, never forget why you want to do it. It's easy to do that at some point. You know, you're a kid and you're playing and you're using your imagination. You get to be a kid for the rest of your life. I mean, it's the stuff you did in your backyard with a stick as a sword, but you get to do it professionally. Never lose sight of that. Never lose, you know, the childlike wonder, the love, the fun. Hang on to that, because you're going to need it to get you through. But also, once you're there, that's the thing that really comes across. Like, if you love it, everyone else will love it too.
Jeremy, he said one line. He said,
oh, right. All right, give me another take. Give me another take. This is what it's like to work with. This is what it's like to work with the director. Don't screw it up.
I want to thank all three of you for what has been a fantastic panel for me, and I'm sure all of the audience. Give all of them a massive round of applause. Right, we'll be back in 10 minutes when the show keeps going, when we're going to be joined by the Triple Takeover Podcast.